Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend and is excited for the investing week ahead. I see we have JC in our chat already. Hello from the NYC metro area. Me as well. In fact, JC, the NYC metro area. We are neighbors in this live stream. As everybody gets into the stream today, hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. We are chasing down the 3,000 subscriber goal, and we are actually getting very close now. Even if you're watching on X, maybe you could pop on over to YouTube as well and give us a subscribe there. We are just 32 away now, so the countdown is on. I'm sure we could get there by the end of this week, right? Drop a like if you're watching on X or YouTube if you're excited for the topics that we are going to get into today, which I will take you guys through now. We're going to start actually today with a little bit more of the topic we covered last week of the government shutdown, how it could possibly affect this market. I see Mario is in here as well. Hello, Mario. Welcome on in. The odds are still high on Poly Market for a shutdown, so I'm going to ask George how he's going to be trading those headlines or if he's paying attention and looking at that closely. We're also going to talk about a cool thing where Prospero Republic crowdfund was picked as. Wait, I don't want to misquote this. Let me pull up what George sent me. I think the most probable successful investment on the Republic platform right now by Grok and Perplexity. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We posted about it on Twitter, and I will be sharing that in the chat. Here, let me share it for you all in YouTube right now. Check out. All right, I'm going to share it for our YouTube viewers right now. I also want to share it on Twitter as well. So give me 1 second, everybody. I should have shared it in the YouTube live chat, and I'm sharing it below our live stream in the comments on Twitter. Check out what Grok and Perplexity had to say about the Prospero crowd fund. JC put a rocket to the moon, JC. All right, I should have shared it. Yes, I shared it on X as well. All right, so yes, we're going to be talking about that when George gets in here. Then we will be spinning into a story about the Walmart CEO making some headlines about how AI is going to affect the job market, which people are a bit concerned about, considering Walmart has over 2 million employees. So we'll talk a little bit about maybe why Walmart and a lot of other companies that are typically thought of as lower growth and typically trade at a low valuation are trading at higher valuations, and maybe it's the market pricing in job cuts due to AI. We will also talk about Apple. They are approaching the all-time highs again, trading at a decent valuation themselves. I'm going to have George. A lot of the times on the stream when we brought up Apple, we've kind of talked about how they lack innovation. We've kind of talked about them from a negative perspective. So I'm going to challenge George to steelman why Apple deserves this valuation, and why it can not only reach all-time highs, but how could anybody think, it'll rally 10, 20, 30% from here? So we'll hear George give the bull case for Apple today on the streams, which we haven't really given much in the past. We will also talk about the nuclear energy stocks, which if you're a Prospero investing letter newsreader that goes out on Sundays, you saw us highlight nuclear as just the place to be in the current market. So we'll bring up them again, which nuclear stocks are the best. And I want to ask George if we're about to see a lot of the legacy energy companies and even maybe the oil companies dive headfirst into nuclear, as it is looking like the not a possibility anymore, but almost a certainty that we will be having more nuclear energy in the future. We have earnings still to cover this week. Nike earnings tomorrow after the bell, so we'll bring them up. They are one of those stocks that has lagged the market a ton over the past couple of years, but let's see. I haven't looked at Nike too closely in recent weeks. Let's see if they've gotten any kind of buy the dip people in there. Where is Nike? Okay, here we go. So Nike in the past month, let's look at. Oof. Nike down almost 8% in the past month, still down 9% year to date. Well off their April lows, but down 44% over the past 5 years. So not much going on for Nike at the moment. So we'll bring them up ahead of their earnings. Another stock that has dipped. Hey George, welcome to the stream today. Dipped a lot, even more than Nike, especially in the past couple of months, is Sprout Farmers Market. I don't know how many of our viewers have been following this stock, but they were like one of the darlings of the market, just constant up and to the right chart, and then just all of a sudden off the table, falling knife now. Is it time to buy the dip? We will ask George later on. We're also going to get into crypto. We've seen the Bitcoin miners continually rally with the AI narrative that has led this bull market recently. But is it time for the crypto themselves, and especially Bitcoin, to regain some momentum here, especially as we got recent weakness, maybe resetting some people's minds and looking for renewed momentum to the upside? Last but not least on the stream today, we will get into EA Sports, which is going private for a $55 billion deal. Interesting. The people who are taking them private, there are three big investment funds we'll share later. And also, I want to bring back up today Take-Two stock, which we highlighted a long time ago, way before. I think they've pushed back the Grand Theft Auto release date like 3 times, but their stock has had great, great strength. So we'll bring them up again today. As you know, they're like, I think, the biggest video game stock left on the market. George has the best selection of shirts. I know, JC. He really does. He's got such a great wardrobe. We'll have to do a day in the life video again, like we did in the past, of George's closet. That we won't cover any stocks, just George's shirt. You can tell how George is feeling about the market by his shirt selection, by the way, everybody. But George, welcome to the stream today. I know we want to jump into this very interesting thing of where Grok and Perplexity picked out our company, Prospero, as I think the most likely successful investment that's currently available on the Republic platform. If you just tuning into the stream right now, I shared it in our X comments and in our YouTube live chat, so you guys can click on the actual post we made. But yeah, if you want to talk about that a bit, George, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would not have been even aware of this, but someone, thank you. I forget who it was, or I don't know if it's private, so maybe I shouldn't reveal them. Sometimes I can see the names. But I saw, and it was someone, invested over the weekend and said, Grok listed as like Prospero as the, as one of the top investments on Republic. So I was like, okay, let me see how long that's going to be the case or it. And yeah, not only do you check that, actually, we haven't even tried like ChatGPT and anything else. Maybe we should try more of those. If someone in the audience wants to ask what the most likely investments to receive, most likely Republic investments to succeed, maybe we've got the other ones too. We didn't text Claude, but it's cool. Like, not only that, I think the post where Wolf and some other accounts like talked about it and Perplexity, it actually, I think it's got over 700,000 views, that tweet now. So yeah, I guess it's not only us that's excited about that. That's pretty cool.
That is some great recognition right there, and I'm very interested to see if anybody searches it up on a different large language model, how it ranks us. But let's get into the stories of the week here. We have this government shutdown still looming. We brought it up last week. Nothing has changed with the odds, really. So last week they were creeping up till like the high 60s, low 70s, and they've kind of stalled out there, but they're still high at those levels. Are you concerned at all? Are you going to be watching this closely and even making moves if you see certain headlines throughout this week about the government shutdown?
I mean, I don't know. I think today's performance kind of, if we saw another red day today, with the odds increasing for a government shutdown, I think that maybe we would see a more concerned market. I don't know. I'm gonna play it by ear. Option sentiment looks pretty good today. Last I checked, I think it was like 40 and 30, 40 and 39. So I think I think what I'm reading this as is, even if there's going to be a shutdown, I think people, kind of similarly to how tariffs got treated after a little while, that as opposed to people forecasting like, oh, this is what's going to happen if it's sustained. I think people are kind of looking at these events more like, okay, maybe it'll happen, but it's a negotiating tactic and one of the sides is going to fold before too long.
Thank you for reminding me. I forgot to bring up QQQ and SPY net option sentiment, which I like to do in the beginning of the stream. So we are currently at 28 for the QQQ and NOS and 33 for the SPY at this very moment. So the SPY is actually above the QQQ, which I feel like in the past week or so we've been seeing kind of more frequently than at any point earlier this year. Are you taking note of that and watching that? Is that changing any of your thoughts on the market, or not really? Just AI and tech trade still.
No, oh, and I forgot. Thank you for the shirt compliment, JC. I appreciate it. No, I mean, I think right now I'm unless I see them kind of go high and sustain it or low and sustain it, I'm pretty much treating this market as a, go pretty even long short market, depending on how healthy or unhealthy they look relative to like the stabilization. Like if they're bouncing up and down, but tend to be more closer to the bull zone versus the bear zone, I might tilt a little more long versus short. But I think where I'm at right now is until we get more resolution again, as we did with the rates, right? And when we thought we saw some clarity on rates, we loaded up, we got more risk on, and then we pulled it back. And I think that's how we're going to approach it.
And I saw in our newsletter, it mentioned how you're watching the odds of the next rate cut very closely and even kind of thinking of it as important as the net option sentiment levels you're seeing. So it would appear that anything that would halt rate cuts would really kind of halt the momentum in the market, in your opinion, at least. And I don't know, I just thought it was very interesting how much importance you put on the likelihood that we're seeing in those probabilities for more rate cuts.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm always talking about and what the letter was really about this weekend was you always have to look for patterns and you always have to look for new patterns that might be forming based on, whatever it is, based on a new, paradigm in earnings or sector shifts or even, shifts in the way, the government's run. And I think that, that was kind of, I'm taking a step back and I'm being like, okay, I think we're starting to see some patterns of how this government is run. And the point I was making is I even think there's a big difference between Trump's first presidency and his second presidency in terms of how the markets run. So you have to like have new pattern recognition. And I think more than ever, it's this is a Trump led market economy, everything like that. And I mean, I think that's the way he wants it. I think that's the way a lot of people voted for. So I think we have to understand how to make money around that, right? And the best way to manage risk around that. And sometimes we can be forwards looking here and get out ahead of trends, but sometimes you have to realize that there might have been a trend formed behind you to get out in front of them better in the future. And as I was looking at that probability go from 45 to 91% last month, I think that was just in the course of a month for the next rate cut, right? I think kind of what I was seeing there is I was like, even as QQQ, SPY, net option sentiment were a little volatile, the market was getting more and more sure that second rate cut was coming. And I think that's a big reason backwards looking why we might have seen a lot more bull support than maybe the inconsistencies in the QQQ, SPY, net option sentiment. And, indeed, when they would go higher, there were a few times when I don't think I put enough risk on because I was nervous about the volatility. But if I was using that signal for support, I think I could have made more money last month. And, that's what we always have to look for: opportunities to improve the process and opportunities to evolve the process based on other conditions.
So I want to get into next a quote that the Walmart CEO said recently. So Walmart is the employer of over 2.1 million people. And the CEO said, it's very clear that AI is going to change literally every job. Maybe there's a job in the world that AI won't change, but I haven't thought of it yet. So he didn't directly say like AI is going to remove jobs, but I think when people heard this, they kind of read between the lines and were insinuating that. What are your thoughts on the Walmart CEO saying this? Is he kind of getting ahead of maybe some cuts that they could be thinking about making because of AI, or are you not so cynical about that quote? Do you think he's just saying jobs are going to change, but I'm not necessarily saying going to cut a ton of
Yeah.
jobs?
I mean, I think some of that's like headline, every job is going to be, I mean, I think every job is going to be affected by AI, but I don't think every job can be replaced. I was at an event last week, um, and I was talking to someone who does fractional CFOs. And that right there, I was like, well, I don't think that job is being replaced anytime soon. And the big reason for that is like when you have a CFO, that's compliance, taxes, a lot of the stuff that they do. Um, you're not really going to want to have like a machine do that all the way. At the very least, even if you have them doing like a lot of the lower bookkeeping things, you're going to want a person that's doing that, because at the end of the day, you want a person that's responsible for that is the big thing. So I think there's tons of jobs. I think in my last article on AI, there's like things that are in like clinical kind of biotech, healthcare, where it's going to be a longer road. I mean, in theory, they could do it, but I think it's the compliance things that are going to be most different. But yeah, I mean, I also think that is a CEO that's preparing, shareholders, employees, everybody for the idea that, yeah, a lot of what they're doing. I mean, the big thing that I think you can look, I think you kind of have to look to the road first, right? Because I think in certain states, truck driver is like the largest, is like the most common population. I mean, most common job by volume, right? Those days are numbered, right? All of the people in the gig economy that have started to do these like food deliveries, Uber drivers, all that stuff. Like, I think that, and packing facilities, Amazon is obviously well on their way of doing that. I mean, they really like, I think some of the robots get treated better than some of the people at those Amazon facilities already, quite frankly. But uh, I think that's where we're going to see it more pronounced first before it comes for a lot of other stuff. But yeah, we're really not prepared for that. I mean, a lot of people are kind of showing the warning signs. But when you think about it, there's also, things coming through in terms of bills, in terms of people losing health care. I think we're going to see job loss. I mean, either we're going to figure out what to do with all of those people, whether it be for healthcare, or whether it be for, basic income or anything like that. Or there's going to be a lot of unhappy people, maybe a lot more people, with bad health situations. We do see this kind of technology like marching on pretty fast and, kind of getting closer and closer to that. But uh, we're not necessarily seeing a lot of the solutions materialize.
Do you think this is why a company like Walmart, which, for its entire history would trade at a very low valuation, can have a 40 PE right now, as people are anticipating them becoming more automated, their business more profitable, using more AI? And you think we're kind of in this waiting period to like see those gains, but people are already pricing them into stocks like that?
Um, I mean, we don't really know because you don't really know how to price them into stocks yet, right? Because if you're talking about mass job layoffs, like maybe you can price in savings in the long term. Um, and I'm not sure what like people like hourly people or anything like that. Maybe you can just cut them. But I don't think people really know how to price that in. I mean, that's why we always talk about the cloud providers, right? Because it's hard to look at Walmart and be like, how is this going to impact margins? Like, what kind of labor reduction in the end? What kind of timeline is that? Is there going to be a lot of like severance or comp, or, I don't know the legalities well enough, or how much. I mean, I think you could probably just lay someone off that's like a cashier or something. But the story is a lot clearer on something like chips or cloud providers, right? Because, no matter what, as these get replaced, more compute is going to be more compute's going to be needed. That's what we know with a lot more certainty. We know a lot more certainty, like the amount, who's going to be the winner. So I think that's why we've seen that rally here first. In terms of in terms of what companies are going to win, right? I think you could make a case for, like, why would you even bet on something like Walmart when I think Amazon's much better positioned to automate and have advantages on that. Like, even if you just look at something like the shipping infrastructure, like the shipping infrastructure is way better already for Amazon than Walmart, and Amazon's working on things like their own drones. Like, Walmart, I don't think is really ready to play in that, in the brave new world that's coming yet, but Amazon definitely is.
Well, it looks like JC double checked us on Perplexity, and it looks like Perplexity said us again. I'll let everybody, the best investment opportunity on Republic in September 25, so it depends on individual risk tolerance. But there is this little investing app, this AI powered stock and ETF picking app, Prospero, recently stood out. So it looks like Republic shouted us out again, a little less directly, but came to the same conclusion. I want to bring up Apple also on the stream today because I feel like on our streams, Apple has gotten a rough shake. So I want to flip the script on Apple because the stock has just continued to like perform well. It's reaching all-time highs again. I feel like people are excited about Apple right now for some reason. Maybe you could steelman the bull case for Apple. Why has the stock continued to perform well, even though we've constantly pointed out the lack of innovation? And it's actually funny. Like, I think either the number one or number two most viewed short on our channel is talking about the differences of Apple from when Steve Jobs was the leader till now Tim Cook. So, but I wanted to let's give the bull case. Like, why has Apple stock reached back to all-time highs now, and how do people think it can get the next 10, 20% of gains?
Um, I think first of all, I think Apple's just got like a recognizable brand. And I think when some people see the market rallying, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily know the depths of the market. And they're just like, oh, like, I think it's similar. I think it's kind of like an old, like now more and more people just buy the S&P 500 or something like that. But I think it's kind of like the single stock equivalent of the S&P 500. I think people are like, oh, the markets are doing well, better buy some Apple, right? I don't think it's people that are in the weeds. And like, if you're not in the weeds about stocks, it makes sense, right? You still see Apple products all over the place, iPhones all over the place. They had that new AirPod announcement that I thought was pretty cool. That if you're not really like necessarily looking really close at stocks and innovation, you might have a very different perception. I think maybe the dark horse thing, if you're talking about like what could happen with government and the protectionism stuff, we're obviously, you have Apple moving a lot, to India, where we have better relations than China. You have them talking about building, a lot more domestically. I think maybe people on a longer time horizon might be saying, oh, maybe there's a day when these maybe more in India, maybe more in America, that becomes an advantage versus, these phones that are being made in Asia. But yeah, I think it has most to do with that. I mean, you'd have to ask the people, buying Apple. I'll ask, Evan Stock Market News. He's always really likes Apple. So next time I talk to him on a space, I'll ask him.
For those that are watching on YouTube, we have this new setup where we have a integration that will shout out our investing and trading newsletter. So if you guys have never checked them out, you can click on it. It shared the links in the chat. It's also going to share a link to our Republic crowdfund shortly, but just to let everybody know. One thing I want to say about Apple is
I'm gonna at Evan. We'll see if he gets back to us.
Okay.
Because I just realized in the spaces that I'm on with him, it's normally about I don't want to take the focus off Prospero to ask about Apple. Who's got the time for that? But we'll see if he
One follow-up I had about Apple as we're seeing if Evan gives us an answer. They seem like they had such an early head start on the manufacturing of devices. I don't know. The fact that they weren't able to come through on that car project, and the fact that I don't think they have even any project like Elon Musk's Optimus robot, which seems like it could be such a great opportunity for Apple with all of the users they have and the manufacturing and the know-how. I don't know. Do you think that's like a big missed opportunity for them, or do you see them kind of? I feel like their game now is like they let other people build it, and then they just like have the ecosystem like adapt in the Apple ecosystem. But what do you think about all that?
I mean, the big thing is like I do think I'm a little concerned about, maybe some of their monetization evaporating as well. Like that's a big thing. And I think that's the thing. You just like when you're just like clinging to business and it's not necessarily heading in the right direction or expanding, you worry about that. Oh, Evan already got back. We'll see if he says what's the bull case. He just said eyes.
Okay. Um, we'll see if Evan answers. We can move on now to nuclear stocks because it's I feel like so quickly, the pace of tech now in the market, it's gone from nuclear was like a possibility to a certainty, like overnight in the blink of an eye, it seems like. And now we have all these stocks that are looking good in our signals. A lot of stocks are rallying in the nuclear sector. It was even in our newsletter. Just can you talk about like how quickly things move in the market today and like the fact that just a year ago at this time, nuclear was like, I feel like it was in the same topic of like space stocks and quantum stocks. It was like, yeah, one day it probably could happen, but probably not soon. And now, like in the blink of an eye, it seems like definitely going to happen, and it's being priced in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where we are in such like a retail driven market now where things are getting aggressive, like future tech is getting aggressive valuations. And I think that, when we talked about UUUU in our trade alert, right? Really the main point we had about it was um that they're the largest uranium producer in the US. We are becoming more protectionist. They do rare earth minerals too, which is great. And then you kind of look at it, like obviously also so hot right now, and you look at it and you're basically saying, um, this is something, retail gets excited about like quantum, right? And a lot of other things, and then institutions that follow this momentum. And this is a lot more certain. This is not a lot more, soon. And what we talk about, that's different between like these different chips or whatever, like we know 1000% that there's an unlimited demand for this stuff if these places figure it out. And that's the big thing that I think makes this, a more solid momentum play, especially if you expect retail momentum traders to keep flocking to it, right? Because we basically are we're basically going to continue to see that demand just stay there, increase, as compute gets higher. So I think that's really the thing. Once these places go online, there's pretty much unlimited demand. And one of the things that we also pointed out in the UUU investment is that spot prices are at $80 on uranium, and people are forecasting 90 to 100 by the end of the year. So everything in the market, that extreme demand for uranium, right? That's right now, and that also reinforces the Iranian gold rush that's going on right now. That tells people, those places are sure enough that they're going to need that they're grabbing as much as they possibly can. So yeah, I think that it's a very exciting area.
And with so much excitement around it, do you expect these legacy energy companies and especially like the oil companies, which are huge companies still with like tens or hundreds of $1 billion of market cap, do you expect to see them jump into this segment as it is kind of like the most exciting growth energy area? Honestly, one of the most exciting growth areas in the whole market, but haven't seen a lot of those like legacy oil companies. I would imagine they would be dipping their toes into this as maybe this is where energy production is heading over the coming decades. Like, Do you expect to see some headlines in the recent future, or in the near future, I should say, about some of those crossovers of oil stocks dipping their toes into nuclear?
I mean, there's a difference between selling oil and creating something like a power plant or a reactor or materials there. Like it does, given what oil companies do, it does make sense that they would also try to get into uranium mining, right? But there's not necessarily a ton of uranium out there, right? It's not like, maybe they could offer like an insane deal to a company that already controls a uranium mine to buy it. But, at that point, could they like, could a Chevron attempt to acquire something like a UUU? I think that that's definitely something they could, that would be interesting to them to get access to mines. I think another business is like what I was reading is one of the reasons that China is so good at finding rare earth minerals is I think they've repurposed this like I think huge. I think it's like bigger than Manhattan. This like basically like sonar or like I don't know if it's some kind of like it shoots some kind of signal into the earth that allows them to mine more efficiently, right? That could be. I mean, that's a bit out there for an oil company, but they already do that kind of mining thing. Maybe if they were to invent a technology that could allow them to find certain, whether it be uranium or rare earth minerals or anything. I don't know enough about the technology to really say how realistic that is. I do know that's what people say China's advantage is, and I think that's the other thing that I didn't say at the beginning that's important about like this bullishness on nuclear is nobody's going to deny we're in kind of like I think a modern kind of cold war, but it's more about like AI and rare earth minerals and things like that with China. So I think part of it is because they are starting to mobilize a lot faster on nuclear. Like it's something that we will do to keep up, whether or not um, whether or not we're that close to doing it. Like we'll will our way there.
So, two follow-ups, and then we can move on from this topic. Firstly, if you had to predict like 10, 20 years from now, where will we get most of our energy from? Will it be oil? Will it be solar? Will it be nuclear? And then also, as you're talking about uranium, I was wondering, like, with such an uptick in demand for uranium and it being such a finite supply, can we see uranium prices like really go crazy and kind of bottleneck the industry where it's like, well, it's not even, we have to pause because the uranium prices just are going so crazy, it's not even worth it at the moment. Is that a possibility and maybe one of the risks to the narrative of like nuclear energy at the moment?
It's a supply and demand thing, right? Like prices are only going to rise to a point where there's orders and it reaches a certain equilibrium. So I don't think there's a free market, right? I don't think people are arbitrarily raising the price. I think how these prices get raised is basically like they slowly get raised and the demand continues. But if the demand starts to drop off, if they have excess, then there's a choice. Do you sit on your excess or do start to, lower it a little bit and see if you have, a full slate of purchasers again? I think uranium is probably going to be something that just keeps going up in price because there is limited supply and the demand is growing. There's more and more of these companies, more and more I think demand for it will continue to increase.
And any thoughts about like which one's going to be the leader of the way we get our energy in like say the year
Oh yeah,
like
nuclear. I
2040?
think I think in 20 years it'll definitely be nuclear. I mean, if you think about like the capacity of these things, they're just enormous, right? The only reason they didn't keep getting built is people were worried about security. Um, but it seems like we've given up on that. I don't think anyone really cares. Like it doesn't seem like anybody cares about long-term consequences anymore. They're just like, we need the energy now. Let's build up this nuclear thing. I think that's where everybody's at, and it's probably going to bite us in the ass at some point. But for now, nobody seems to care.
You are definitely right about that. I want to switch up topics here, bring up Nike. which is a stock we have not talked about in a while, but they have earnings after market tomorrow. And we checked out their stock performance in the beginning of the stream when we were previewing the topic. It hasn't been great, still red year to date. Can you see any bullish momentum building in Nike after these earnings, with the market having continued to rip higher? Maybe Nike can begin catching up now that the tariff situation is a bit clearer, seemingly, or not yet for Nike stock?
I think I think there's for brands like Nike, I think there was a day, and I think that day was when ads were a much bigger thing, especially like television ads, where you could have these, dominant brands. Um, and I think now I just am not I'm not seeing I'm not seeing that same extent. And I also think people care about the way people make products. And for a while it was very easy for Nike to just make them wherever, and I think that also helped their margins. But I think right now, like, and it's not like you don't see Nike in places. It's not like people don't like the brand, but I just think we're kind of in a different time in terms of brands, and I think they're expensive, and I think when people are going to buy more expensive brands these days, I think they want a niche brand that's going to like show off their wealth more. I don't know that much about sneakers, right? And I do know some people still collect Nikes and things like that. But I just think it kind of isn't I think they're expensive enough that there's better cost effective shoes that people can buy. And also I think people have some problems with how they're made. And then I don't think they're expensive enough or an elite enough brand that they can really compete with nicer, more like kind of designer type shoes. So I think that's their biggest. They have a number of problems, and I think their heyday is behind them.
An upside, 55 downside. I feel like whenever we talk about our signals, it's always bullish or bearish, but this kind of looks like maybe neutral. Would you categorize it that way, looking at our
There's
signals?
plenty of stuff that's neutral. Let me take a look.
And what would neutral mean for you if you saw a stock as that in Prospero? Would you expect it to kind of just trend sideways based on our signals?
No, I mean that's a really good question, right? These are probabilities, right? Like something like upside is the like looking at the probability of a big breakout, and downside the probability of a big move down, right? Um, that doesn't mean neutral. It just means that there's close to even probability of a big up move or a big down move, right? It's still like, neutral is just a third possibility versus the upside and the downside. So yeah, that's actually a good question, and it drives at an interesting topic, right? Like something neutral in the signals, it just means there isn't a big probability in our systems, not viewing it as a big probability of a move up or a move down.
No, that is interesting. And I don't think we've talked about that before, so that's cool to bring up. I also wanted to bring back up today because if anybody was in our streams last week, you probably saw Matt shout out a stock that looked good in our signals, Compass. And I was doing a little searching around, and I found an ETF. So it's a psychedelic ETF that has a lot of those similar stocks. Its ticker is PSIL, and I just wanted to bring them up today and shout them out. It reminded me of when we were talking about these quantum stocks in the very beginning of like IonQ and Rigetti and all the others, QBTS. Um, and I think it actually, well, how do you feel about like these stocks, George, the psychedelic stocks? Because, it never seemed like they could possibly get any administrational backing, but you see what is done recently with like the whole Tylenol saga. And it's like, well, maybe now is the time, if ever, that these stocks can get a boost. And yeah, do you think like, maybe it seemed crazy one time, but now it's a possibility?
Yeah. I think like I think especially paired with, you know, a quantum ETF, BLOK we talk about, maybe something that's more about like flying cars, like nuclear. Like I think having a portfolio of all of these ETFs is very, very smart, because not only are you're distributing risk across that, you're also distributing risk across these different future techs, right? And you've got to think at least one or two of them is going to hit on such a multiple that even if the others never come to fruition, you're probably still like deep in the profit. So I think that's a really good way to look at risk. And I think, yeah, playing, all of them, all of those, or maybe, 3, 4 that you're more confident in, I think is a very smart strategy.
So another stock that is not doing well in the recent market. Let me actually take a live look and see just how bad their performance has been. This stock was a darling at one point, Sprout Farmers Market, kind of similar to like Kava and the type of stock move they had. They were rallying up so much, but just in the past 3 months now, down 32%. And if you look at their chart, it's one of the ugliest charts I feel like you could ever see. Like it's like day after day declining. The RSI for the stock currently is at 15. How much do you look at RSIs? When you see an RSI so low, does that make you interested, or are you not interested in a falling knife and going to stay away from this stock for now?
Um, RSI is just like another data point. Obviously, we have technical flow, but I do think about it. Like, I'll put it this way: if I have two bear picks that I'm looking at pretty closely, and one of them looks oversold in RSI and the other one doesn't, like if one's 20 and one's 30, and I view them very similarly, I'd much rather the one at 30, just because a lot of these algos are just going to start buying things regardless of the rest of the setup. They're going to start buying things when something's oversold. Obviously, that hasn't happened yet with Sprouts Farmers Market, but it's still like adding risk, and we want to minimize risk whenever we can.
Does a stock making a move like this show you that maybe it's not a retail driven stock and it's more of an algo driven stock? Because it hasn't had any like major headlines or really kind of like any like earth shattering news that would suggest you to believe like it's going to drop 30% in a couple months. And it was so bullish for so long. It's interesting to see it like switch up in an instant with kind of not a crazy news story. Could that just be a sign that the algos were trading it and it didn't have like, do you read into that at all? Do you gain any insights from that, or not really?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we're probably talking about a stock that people thought was attractive based on, consumer spending. A lot of consumer defensive has gotten, faded a little bit as the perception around the market has gotten stronger. And I think that's really it. I think it's a sector level thing. And then I think it's a sector level thing for a stock that it was a name brand, right? And I think you see these name brands maybe get, overbought when people think that it's like, oh, it's time for consumer defensive, and they're going to swing back the other way a lot harder too as a result of that.
So I wanted to bring up crypto on the stream today because I feel like we haven't talked about it in a few weeks. Kind of probably just because it's been trending sideways to negative recently, which is interesting considering that the market has been so bullish. For Bitcoin itself, Bitcoin has not done well, but the Bitcoin and crypto miners, maybe they're taking all of the thunder because they have gone crazy as we've been highlighting them, how they're kind of being viewed as like data center plays and maybe more AI um, part to that story. But what do you think of crypto at the moment? It seems like last week in the market, we had maybe a little bit of a reset. We had a little bit of weakness. If there is a new found momentum in the markets and we're reaching new all-time highs, can we see Bitcoin catch up and be one of those leaders again? And how do you feel about the overall crypto space?
Um, I do think it's looking increasingly like a good time. Like Coinbase was a stock we had recently that we dropped, but it's looking very strong today. I mean, until we get this, it's such a high risk asset. I think until we get more clarity on the government shutdown, I probably won't be all that interested in it. But it'll be something I think, as we get a resolution, as we get closer to a resolution, I'm going to be looking at very closely.
I'm curious with so we got October, November, December, last quarter of the year. Do you think Iron, which has gone on this crazy run, which do you think will perform better in the last 3 months, Iron or Bitcoin? So you're talking about a stock with like all the momentum that has gone crazy, or kind of maybe a stock that's or crypto that's been lagging. Which do you think will have a better final 3 months?
I think Bitcoin. I think it's just I think it's due for a rebound, and Iron's just been going too crazy.
Interesting. I wanted to also bring up this story about EA Sports. They are being taken private in a $55 billion deal. Three investment firms are in on this: the Fund of Saudi Arabia, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners at $210 per share. Uh, I'm wondering, a lot of people have criticized gaming companies recently as not making as good of games as they did in the past, kind of like softening the edges of what the games could be. And I'm wondering if taking a company that's this massive and it has all these games private, if that's a sign that they're going to be looking to make more games that are maybe bringing back the edginess or whatever that they used to have back in the day. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's a good opportunity now and EA Sports going private? We're going to talk a little bit more about Take Two after it, but just your thoughts on the gaming industry at the moment and EA Sports.
Um, I think the gaming industry is something that could be impacted by generative AI so much that I'm a little nervous. Like it's um and then I think the other thing with the gaming industry is I just think not only is there that pressure, but I also think that as technology improves, like I think things like VR or the metaverse again are going to become more popular, and it's there's too many kind of risks to that industry changing that I don't necessarily want to own a legacy brand if that changes, right? And then we also have like these immersive universes, like something like Roblox. I'd rather own than Take Two, right? Because that is kind of like expanding in scope, it's expanding in popularity. But even then, you don't know if you don't know if Roblox is going to be replaced by something else that's like more VR native, for example. So yeah, all that stuff kind of makes me nervous.
And Gilbert said Electronic Arts Total. Yes, I misspoke. Said EA Sports. Yes, the whole EA company. It's interesting to me seeing recently being so like obviously I'm working in social media and all this, so I'm following like the people who were streaming on Twitch, who were the biggest like entertainers in the world over COVID for like a brief moment, and seeing all these numbers tick down. I'm wondering if, as the world has gone back to normal over time, if people are less interested in gaming than they have been in the past couple of years, and if that trend is going to continue, or if this is like a bottoming of that trend, then we're going to see an uptick over the next couple of years after people have kind of like ebbed and flowed the cycle of like being so invested, then getting a break, now wanting to go back in. It does also feel like there hasn't been a breakout game in a while, and maybe Take Two, which stock has been on a tear in anticipation of Grand Theft Auto being released, which we covered a long time ago on the streams because they've moved back the date. I think it's all the way to like May 2026 now of when it's supposed to be released. Someone can check me on this. I'm not 100% sure, but I think originally it was like in 2024, so they've moved it back like so much. With Take Two stock having gone up in the meantime in anticipation of this game, how would you view it now? Like, has the move already occurred in the stock, or is it still attractive as everybody's expecting this release to be like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, video games of all time?
Um, I mean, I think that's the reason the stock does so well, right? But I don't think that's a bad bet to bet on the release, right? Because I think, especially in this like retail driven market, I think a lot of people, if they go out, they buy the game, they like the game, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm sure a lot of people that buy it like it, are probably inclined to buy the stock too. So I think that's a good thing potentially to play. We'd consider it if it looked good in our signals as that was happening. But generally, because of how what we said about the industry, it's not something that's particularly attractive to us unless the signals point in that direction, which they very well could.
So Gilbert checked me and I was right. 5/26/26. So May 26th is the release date for GTA at the moment. That was the final topic I had today. I do want to ask you about one more stock since we got some time here, but we've had over 2,000 people in the stream. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the stream so far. If you have, drop a like on X or YouTube, follow us on X, subscribe to us on YouTube. We are going to be getting into the model portfolio in just a few minutes, but hopefully, or possibly, if you got any questions on stocks, macro, micro, AI, business, whatever, just leave a comment and we'll get to it. But I want to ask you, George, about Robinhood today is up 8%. Are you seeing anything that would like explain this move here as we're breaking all-time highs in Robinhood stock? And now this company is approaching $120 billion in market cap and up almost 450% in the past year. Obviously, an AI, our Prospero.ai signal darling throughout the whole rip.
Um, I just looked, it's a little lower in that option sentiment than I would like, but I mean, I think crypto is doing well today, right? And I think Robinhood rallies with crypto a lot of the time, even more so, which doesn't make, particular sense. I mean, the more part, it does make sense that it would rally with it. But yeah, I mean, I also think, the market kind of had a bad week this week. It's rebounding again. And I think also, the resilience of the market, the type of the market we're in, I think make people think that, Robinhood, the healthier the market looks, I think the more people want to own Robinhood. So I think both of those things are going. That option sentiment isn't really high enough for us right now, but it's something to watch.
I'm not saying this is going to be the case for Robinhood, but I have fears seeing a lot of these companies just go crazy and the valuations just being insane. Maybe I have PTSD of like 2021, 2022. It's like, how do you get a stock to drop 80, 90%? Well, you need the stock to go crazy beforehand so that it has that room to drop. Do you think whenever the momentum in this market subsides, not necessarily Robinhood, but there's going to be some companies like that that are, do have all this momentum now, are hitting new all-time highs day after day, that are going to have not just like a 10, 20% pullback, but like 50 plus percent when we're on whatever other side of the bullish momentum we have?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think Robinhood is a great candidate for a huge drop, right? Because we talked about it. Like when the market's not doing as well, um, when the market's doing well, it goes up, I think extra. And when the market's not doing well, I think it gets, kind of disproportionately punished. It has been on such a big run. I think Robinhood on an extended bear turn correction, is probably a stock that it like could easily go down 50 or 60%. But I don't think 90.
Uh-huh. Another high-flying stock Jonathan is asking about. Are you surprised that upside breakout for Palantir dropped from the 90s to 68?
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, no, not really. I think that it got like a lot of value, and that's like we'll see what happens in earnings. But what my guess would be is it's gotten so much value. I mean, it's gotten so high in value. I would not be surprised if, some of it was due to a perception that they were going to disappoint in earnings.
Is that the type of signal move where you'd consider cutting it if if you don't see that update by the end of the day?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure it'll be lower in momentum score. I'm not sure what portfolios, if any, I have it in, but definitely, yeah.
Alrighty, everybody. I think that's the only question we got at the moment. Time for us to do our switch over. Everybody stick around. George will join right back in on the other side, and we'll do the model portfolio. If anybody's new to the streams, what we're about to do, the model portfolio update, is when George makes live picks for our model portfolio on the stream. So he's going to add and drop, which is paid for a newsletter, but you get to watch it for free at the end of the stream. So good value there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in so far today. We've had a lot of viewers. I hope you enjoyed the topics of the stream so far. I'm going to check in on our YouTube audience. Have you guys been liking it up? Hey, you did get us to double digits. We're at 13. Okay, thank you everybody for liking the stream so far. Help us hit 20 possibly by the end of the stream. We have 7 more to go. We also, big update for the Prospero YouTube channel. We just got our first, we just qualified for our first partner program. So that's pretty cool of doing these streams now for a couple years. So shout out YouTube. I hope the partner program loves Prospero. I want to take another look at the QQQ and SPY net options sentiments. We checked at them on the beginning of the stream. Let's see here. Okay. QQQ is now at 33 and SPY is at 30. So QQQ has reclaimed the top spot over the SPY in the Prospero signals for the moment, which is how it has been for most of the year. Although they are both pretty high in the signals from where they have been. I see Mario is asking a question on the alerts. Mario, once George gets back in here, I'll have him answer your question for you. Let's take a look at the markets actually too. What are we seeing? Okay, so we're seeing a little bit of a give back from the rally that we opened up with today. The QQQ is now up 0.5%. The SPY is up less than 0.25%, and the Dow and the Russell are actually both in the red now, very slightly, but they are in the red. And the VIX is up 4.5% today. So not as bullish as it originally appeared, seemingly. Let's take a look at some of the stocks throughout the market, see if they are still climbing. We'll check out the Mag 7. Okay. Apple red, Amazon green, Google green, Meta green, Microsoft green, Tesla red, and Nvidia is green. So mixed across the board of the Magnificent 7 stocks. And a lot of those stocks we've been covering, like the nuclear and quantum, were also ripping in the morning. So let's see how they're doing. Okay, so it seems like a little bit of a give back for quantum at least. I see IonQ down 5, Rigetti down 4.5. Let's check out the nuclear. Oklo. Oklo is still up 7%. So no give back there. Nuclear seems like the strongest one right now. We have a comment from No Ordinary Experience. I'm new. How often do you do these? So our schedule for the live streams is every Monday at 11 a.m. and Wednesday at 3 p.m. And then we also post shorts on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, the best moments from the live streams. So they're little tiny clips. If you ever miss one, you could check out all of our socials. They're linked in our description. You could see some of the best moments from them. But yeah, happy to have you here. Welcome into the Prospero community. Happy you're joining the streams. I hope you enjoyed it so far. But yeah, twice a week. The only time our schedule ever changes really is if there's like a holiday or the market is not open. So we'll switch it up. But besides that, we're pretty good on keeping to it. George, Mario has a question for you. Is the mark all button working correctly on the alerts?
Let me see. I think probably. I mean, if you've read them, it shouldn't do anything. If you haven't read them, like if you haven't gone in there, that's how it's designed to work. But I'll try it next time I go in and I haven't read one. I'll see if it changes the color.
So while we were live on stream today, it seems like we've had a slight give back in the markets. So interesting. From where we opened, we're kind of lower now. QQQ and SPY are still green. Dow is red. Actually, the Russell just popped back into the green now slightly. So a little bit of a mixed market and maybe a questioning of the bullish opening we had. But we shall see.
But I'm about to send out a screener because it does look like growth is doing better. Look at that, NBIS. Oh, let's do.
Gilbert has a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Will we always get a close position update from the trade alerts on the Prospero app? I saw one for POWI on 925, but wasn't sure if that would be the case with all trade alerts.
Yes. There'll always be a close. And there's also, we didn't do this in the MVP, but there's also like a caution state. So yeah, well, like that, and there'll be an alert for caution. All right, we're saving that. As usual, let me know if people see that screener go live, and we will push the alert.
Screener updated.
That's done. Ooh, all right. See, that's a similar problem to the app. Does not look like we can do an update now. All right. I guess we are done.
Well, everybody will have to tune back in Wednesday to see our model portfolio update if you're not a newsletter. By the way, before we leave, the newsletter is linked in our chat on YouTube. You can click on it, go to the investing or trading. Our crowd fund is also in the live chat, so you can click on any of those links as we're heading out. Go check out any of that stuff. Thank you, George. It was a great stream today. We will be back live Wednesday, 3 p.m., everybody. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you all then. Bye, everyone.